Hello, and welcome back to The Process. Today, I want to talk about learning, and I specifically want to talk about why it is so important that we rest when we are learning. Now, I want to talk about this because I just actually learned about this concept or was reminded of this concept yesterday in a training that I was watching. And I thought it would be so useful to dissect a little bit and talk about in the context of what I talk about on this podcast, because a lot of what I talk about is how we need to get out of our own way and learn new things, push ourselves outside of our comfort zones, and just go after whatever it is that you want to do. But there is an important element of understanding that if we miss this, it can actually cost us a level of effectiveness in our learning that we won't even necessarily realize as we are moving through our lives. But it is worth talking about because then we can use this knowledge of how our brain works to be even more effective. So essentially, when we think about learning, we think about putting ourselves in a situation where we are challenged, where we don't know how to do something. We push through that obstacle, we solve the problem, and then we have the solution and we've learned it, and then we keep going. But I think what happens a lot of times in today's world is that we feel as though we need to learn at hyperspeed and we need to stack as many things as we can on top of each other because we're so busy and we're so short on time that we just need to get all of it done all the time. And we never stop and we never rest because there's no time for it. We have to keep going. We have to keep pushing. We're running out of time. And to be fair, I do talk about that on this podcast, that we are running out of time. Time is your most valuable resource. It is the one thing that you can never get back. And so I think that that can contribute to that narrative of, well, then we've got to keep moving. We've got to keep going because otherwise we're going to fall behind and we're going to lose our momentum and we're not going to be able to make the big things happen. But there is such an important facet of this that people don't really talk about. And I needed the reminder yesterday where not only do we need that active bit of learning and doing and challenging ourselves, we also need time for deliberate and conscious rest, because learning is a process and it is a two-part process. So we've got the part that everybody knows, where you've got to sit down and do the thing, or you've got to figure out how to fix the bike, or you've got to figure out how to cook the meal, make the pottery, whatever it is. You have to actually sit in it and do it in order to learn. But the part that we don't talk about is, well, what do we do after that? Instead of jumping to the next thing or studying for the test and then jumping into your next assignment and then jumping into dinner and then jumping into watching TV and then you get 3 hours of sleep and you get up and do it again. Instead of that, we actually have to make time for the second part of this process, which is resting, which is giving your brain time to digest, to process, to understand, to replay. Because when we think about neuroplasticity, we're thinking about neurons in the brain that fire based on the pattern that we give them. If we do something over and over and over, we create a neural pathway where the neurons fuse together and they fire in the same order over and over and over again, that same sequence, so we can get better at the task. That's why when you first start driving, you have to think about it a lot. And then 6 months, 12 months down the road, you can drive without really ever thinking about it, especially if you've been doing it for even longer than that. That's because you have practiced that sequence so many times that your brain has formed such strong neural pathways. It is the same thing when we think about any skill, but your brain actually needs time to consolidate whatever information you just took in. So if you jump from task to task and you never slow down and you never rest, you're not actually giving your brain the time that it needs in order to take in and make sense of all that information so that you can learn effectively. I was listening to a podcast episode where they were talking about this yesterday, and one of the things that he mentioned was that something you can do while you're learning, if you're sitting down at your desk to do a 60 or 90-minute session, that you can actually implement short breaks, like 10-second breaks, in and amongst your learning where you just stop, maybe you close your eyes and you just do nothing. You take a couple of deep breaths, maybe. You don't necessarily need to think about anything, but even that gives your brain an opportunity to replay whatever sequence it was that you just learned. Maybe you're learning a new language and there was a phrase that you tried for the first time and you give yourself 10 seconds. Now your brain is going to go back and replay that exact same message a few times. And it can do it at like hyper speed at 20 times the speed, which is crazy. And sometimes it'll do it backwards, apparently, which I didn't know either. But all of this is happening where your brain is doing all of these things to help you consolidate that information so that you can actually learn better and more effectively than if you just push through it and you never stop. And I think there is a lot of that perception there in today's society where we don't ever give ourselves time to rest. We brag about getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night and think that that's enough for us to sustain a healthy and balanced life. Now, sometimes there's going to be seasons where you're going to have to push through and you might not be able to get as much sleep. Or if you're a new parent, I've been there. I mean, I'm still kind of there. It is challenging to get the sleep that you need. But it is so important when we think of it from this neuroplasticity standpoint of our brains actually can't learn to the level that they need to if we don't give ourselves opportunity to stop, slow down, have some stillness. It doesn't have to be sleeping necessarily, although sleep is incredibly important. And like I mentioned, I think that we really downplay its importance in our overall health. But it doesn't have to always be sleeping. It can be a meditation, or it can just be that 10-second rest that you give yourself, like I mentioned before, where you stop periodically throughout your learning or throughout whatever task you're doing, and you just close your eyes and breathe and give your brain a second to just internalize everything. And then you can keep going. And it doesn't need to be scheduled. Actually, from what I was listening to, it shouldn't be. It should be randomized. So maybe you go for 15 minutes and then you take a 10-second breather, and then maybe you go for 5 more and then take another 10 seconds. But I think that this is such a simple way that we can incorporate more of both sides of the process without necessarily needing to completely shift the way that we work. Taking 10 seconds is not a long time. Obviously, if you're used to getting super deep into your work and not even coming up for air, it's going to be really challenging for you to suddenly implement this strategy. But it is a process that I think is worth considering when we think about the fact that this is how the brain learns best. So if you are wanting to take on a new skill, maybe you've just been promoted at work and you have some new responsibilities that you need to manage. Maybe you're learning how to manage a team for the first time. Maybe you just got a new dog and you're figuring out how to train this dog. All of these things are skills and require us to learn. And if we can go into that knowing that not only do we need to sit in that challenging aspect of it, but we also need to give ourselves time to rest and relax and recuperate, knowing that that part is actually an important part of the process, that instead of demonizing rest and thinking that it's a horrible thing that we should never do because, we should be working, whether it's on the business, whether it's on working out. Maybe you're sitting down and you haven't sat down all day, but as soon as you sit down, you immediately start thinking, oh man, I should have done this. I should have emptied the dishwasher. I should have put on another load of laundry. I shouldn't be sitting down right now. I should go. Instead of sitting in that mentality, we can actually look at it as a necessary and important part of our learning. And I think that if we can really take on that lens, it's pretty empowering. I know for myself, specifically, I'll just speak for myself, but I have definitely fallen into this trap where I spend as much time as I can either working or when I was in university studying. And I remember if I took a day off studying or doing schoolwork, I would feel really guilty, or not necessarily guilty, but I would be thinking about what I needed to get done while I was off doing something social, maybe I was going for a hike or going to the markets or something, I would be thinking about what I needed to do next instead of being in that moment and allowing myself to have just a clean break from whatever it was that I needed to get done. And so my mind never really got to have that intentional time, intentional downtime, other than when I was sleeping. Because obviously, when you're sleeping, you're not thinking of it. But I don't think that I was prioritizing sleep either at that point. I was always saying that I wasn't getting enough sleep and that I sucked at sleeping and whatever, not really thinking about the fact that I could actually be contributing to that or that I could help myself get better at sleeping. But that was a huge area of challenge for me all through university. And I would say even now, as I'm stepping into the businesses that I'm running, it's the same kind of thing, because there's always this mentality of, well, if I'm not working, then what's going to happen? I'm not going to be able to upkeep my level of momentum, or I'm not going to get clients, or there's no money coming in. Or if you're working a job, it's the same kind of thing of like, oh, but I didn't get all this stuff done for my clients. And so I'm going to have to do this over the weekend. And then you try to do something with your family over the weekend, but you're so focused on the fact that you didn't get all your work done. And then it's just this nonstop cycle of really never actually being where you are. Because then when you're thinking about that all the time while you're resting, then while you're working, you're in the same cycle of, oh man, I don't want to be doing this. I wish I was resting. I wish I was out with friends. I wish that I could go for a walk right now, but I shouldn't because I should be doing work. And it's all of it is just the opposite of what we were actually doing. And this constant negative loop of, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, where no matter what you're doing, it feels like you're not doing enough. But that is because we are not allowing ourselves to truly rest and to truly just take some time away from it all. And I think when we can really understand that by doing this rest, by taking this rest, we are actually helping ourselves to learn better. It can take away a lot of that guilt and a lot of that resentment or just rumination on what it is that you should be doing. And instead going, well, actually, I am going to dedicate these hours of my day to working, or these days of the week to working, or building this business, or working on this project, doing this hobby. But then on Sunday, I am going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on watching a movie, going for a hike, meeting up with friends, cooking a beautiful meal, maybe going out for breakfast, anything that is something that you enjoy and that's going to allow you to switch off and rest, and trust that by taking this rest, you're actually helping yourself and you're putting yourself in a better position so that when you do come back to work, you feel refreshed, you feel ready to go, you feel motivated. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know for sure that the times where I have gone away from it, from everything, and maybe I've been on a little getaway, gone away for a few days, I always come back from those trips feeling so rejuvenated. And I have all these ideas. I can't wait to get back into it, as opposed to never fully switching off and then regretting it when I do put myself into work mode and feel like, oh man, I really should have taken that day. I really should have given myself a chance to sleep in. Whatever the thing may be for you, it's about recognizing that we actually do need to create boundaries for ourselves so that we can have our switched on time and we can have our equally as important switched off time. If we want to learn, if we want our brain to be able to function at its highest capacity, if we want to be able to take on challenges, try new things, learn new skills, and really learn them, we have to be able to switch off and give ourselves time to rest, because that is where the consolidation happens. If we are trying to do learning with only one part of the process, we're just going to get really good at taking action, but we're not necessarily learning anything. This was another thing that I think I experienced a lot through university because I never stopped. I would just constantly be studying. And I ended up, I think, memorizing a lot of what I was doing because if I think back to certain subjects, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't summarize certain lessons, maybe from like a extracurricular, not extracurricular, but not one of my core subjects, something that maybe I took on the side. I can't remember any of it because I probably just memorized everything and just gave myself all the information at once, but never actually stopped to let myself really internalize the information. So I think that the more that we can really see it as a two-part approach where one cannot actually function well without the other, the more that we can lean in to both sides and appreciate how our brains work, instead of working against it, we can make it work for us and allow ourselves to really enjoy the rest when we have it and make the most of it, knowing that as we're resting, we're like, yeah, I'm consolidating all this stuff, this challenge that I faced with this customer last week. I'm giving my brain time to really soak up the lesson from that interaction so that when I jump back into work tomorrow, I'm going to have more wisdom about that. And I'm going to be able to handle it differently the next time that something comes up with this customer. All of it is important and all of it needs to be respected for what it is, essentially, if we really want to learn and grow and push ourselves beyond what we're doing, which is the whole point of why we're here. That is the process. That is how we better ourselves and step into a higher version of ourselves. And having this knowledge about how the brain actually works is so helpful and empowering to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to rest today because I know that I need it. I know that my brain needs this in order to be better tomorrow. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any feedback, please send me a message on Instagram. You can leave a comment on the YouTube. Leave us a review on either Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. But thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate every single one of you. It means the world to me. And I'm just so excited to be doing this and to be getting those reps in and showing up every week and recording these episodes as I'm learning, as I am growing, as I am going through this process right alongside you. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.